Okay, so, but one thing we can do is to look at the other side. So who should not be the co-author? Okay, number one, ghostwriters. Those you pay somebody to write your paper, that's ghostwriter. Then this guy should not be on the co-author, or not paying. Or in the big pharma situation, because they want to attract attention to their particular drug, so they invite a ghost writer to write it. Okay, so that they want to be able to write it well. They invite a university professor to write it for them, for the pharmaceutical company, big pharma's paper. That's ghostwriter, and that should not be on the paper. Second, it's an honorary author. I call it big cheese author. Big cheese. I'm not a big cheese. Somebody's okay. The big cheese author, because you want to include the big cheese author to increase the authority of the paper. Big name guy. I would love to include David Baltimore in my paper, right? That probably will at least get through the first hoop for Nature Review. So, big cheese. So there's a debate, as you can see from the newspaper. President Yang Banchi, should he be a co-author of the paper? He's certainly a big cheese, right? Very big cheese in Taiwan. So should he or should not be? Okay. The third one, financier. What do I mean by that? I offer you money to run your experiment. And when you finish your experiment, I will ask a co-authorship. Because I have more grant support. I help you out, just including putting me on there. So if I can get a lot of money, I can get many co-authorship. So power equivalent to money, money equivalent to papers. That should not be. And then that hat has absolutely no involvement of the project. Nominally, just say, oh, you do this, and then you just forget about it until the guys give him the paper. That should not be a co-author. And then some other people provide just the reagents. Sometimes you ask reagent from the other lab, and the guy just tell you that, okay, you use my reagent, you have to put me on co-authorship. If that reagent has been published, there is no reason to put this guy on the co-authorship. He or she can be just acknowledged. But think about the consequence. If you say no, what happened? No reagent. What are you going to do? We are entered the gray zone of human psyche. Not everything is clear-cut, black and white. So if you agree, you are not very ethic either, right? And if you don't agree, you don't have the reagent, you cannot run it. Then you are not force you to generate a reagent. That will take you several more months to do it. Okay, but that's the reality of life. And in Australia, this unethical co-authorship are considered scientific misconduct. But this is a gray zone. In US, it's not. They do not consider this kind of co-authorship as a scientific misconduct by the ORI standard, Office of Research Integrity. So this is really a gray zone area. Everybody has a different opinion, okay? So but Dr. Voss offered the following advice. So at the minimum, you should have carefully read the goddamn paper, right? You don't even read the paper and you just put your name on it. It can be good and it can be very dangerous. If you get caught, you are being responsible. You're going to be responsible as well. So then how about the graduate student's responsibility, postdoc's responsibility? If you are just one doing experiment, you should keep detailed data. Keep them. And it is very important you write detailed notebook. I emphasize it, detailed notebook. You know this can be very serious. It can be involved in intellectual property lawsuit down the road. It can be involved, it can possibly involve in misconduct down the road. If you have nothing to prove it, you will be in trouble. You must write very, very good notebook. That's not an excuse not to do it, okay? Because you are late, you are lazy, or because you don't feel like doing it. So in the next few slides, I want to offer you some standard notebook you should be doing. I did that when I was a graduate student all the way, whenever I was doing the experiment. First thing, these are taken out from a uploaded notebook to a journal. This author basically scanned every page of his notebook and put it as a supplemental material. And that was so good. These are the best notebook I have ever seen. So I use them as an example. Your notebook should consist of the following. Every experiment should have, number one, you should have date. Number two, you should have subtitle. What kind of experiment you'll be doing. Don't be lazy. You have to do it. Okay? Then, your thoughts. Why I want to do this experiment. This is my thought. Let me plan out my experiment. So you look at this particular author, I mean, he was spending time in thinking about it and putting down some of his original thought planning, etc. In the next page, he just keep going and going and going. Still not doing any experiment, still doing thought. Your notebook should be your personal diary. You should be making dialogue to yourself, documented in your notebook. I always told my graduate students, at least some of them still remember, you should know exactly what you have done 15 years ago when you open up the notebook to that page. You should. If you cannot do that, you fail already. You should not. Okay? Then you have experimental planning you have to do. You see, he wrote a lot about thought already. Experimental planning. How are you exactly going to do it? Oh, I want to plan to do it this way, that way, that way, that way. No experiments done at this point of time yet. And then all the dates, etc. Okay? Now, raw data must be included in there. Raw data, not processed data. Okay? These are raw data, must be included in your notebook. And finally, for every experiment you have done, you have to write down discussion. Your thought about the outcome, the potential failure of the project or the experiment. What are you going to do next? So what my advice is that if your paperwork is not done by the end of the day, you are not done yet. You have to finish your paperwork before you go home. You must insist to do that. There's no excuse of being lazy. Okay? Once upon a time, I met a big cheese, the American big cheese, who is the U.S. National Academy of Science member, Archie Wallenbeck. I was attending a meeting, and then I met him in the Boston airport. So we chat a lot, and then we went on to the bus, right into the conference site. So we continued chatting. So we were talking about graduate student, postdoc, and then we talked about notebook writing, bookkeeping, etc. And he told me one story. He said once upon a time he had a female postdoc in his lab. And he thought that the postdocs are well trained, so they should know what they are doing. But soon, Wallenbeck found out that this postdoc hardly took any note. So he sat down with her and told her, so look, this is not acceptable. This is how you should be doing. He even showed him his personal notebook and then said that you should follow these rules. A couple of weeks later, he found out that this postdoc still not doing it. And then he basically called her up into his office, say, look, there's only two ways we can resolve the problem. Number one, that is what I so-called your way or highway. Okay? So you follow my advice doing it, or please go. I cannot afford a postdoc not taking any note, or not enough note, detailed notes in there. You must do it. Graduate student in the audience, postdoc in the audience, you must realize these are your responsibilities. It's responsibility. It's not an option. You have to do it. Because at the very end, you don't want to have something that's bad happen, okay? So then I want to talk briefly about whistleblowing and puppet. Very brief. Okay, the whistleblowing that every institution should have an ORI, Office of Research Integrity. Academia Sinica does not have one yet, but that is in planning right now. But now that because the recent issue becomes so serious, Academia Sinica realized that we must have an ORI. Okay, and if you are whistleblowing on someone, this is your first line in the office you go, and they can protect you. Okay, now online there's a PubPeer that you can challenge a certain paper by in PubPeer, but make no mistake, PubPeer is not perfect either because it's anonymous. That is, you go on there to accuse someone and make some misconduct, and yet you don't show your name whatsoever. So that is the purpose of that is to protect the junior faculty, junior student. That's understandable. But you know what? In recent months in Taiwan, what we have seen is that there's a problem here. Some people use PubPeer as a personal attack toward the people they don't like or their enemies. So my advice to you is that PubPeer is good because they pull out some of the rats in the scientific circle. But whenever you see an allegation on the PubPeer, you should be careful. You should analyze carefully on that. So, for example, one of the best way to look at the image is that to take the image and blow it up to the largest proportion on your computer screen, so that every single pixel show up. If they are cut and paste, you immediately know. Don't look it on the paper. Blow it up on the screen. But don't believe everything what the PubPeer has said. You have to be careful. They have value. They have a great value there too. Okay. So then we talk about students' responsibility. How about PIs? I'm so a little bit disconcerted about so few PIs show up today. Many PI need to be educated. I must admit that I probably make a lot of enemies by saying that too. But they have to be here. They have to be educated. It's their responsibility as well. First of all, they should keep the record for 20 years. This was told to me by the Elsevier publisher. When we asked the Elsevier publisher, say how long we should keep the record, he said 20 years. So that's kind of reference. You know you have to keep all the record for a very long time. PI should have regular discussion about scientific misconduct, research integrity, and insist on research and integrity. If PI is not doing that, if PI is not being responsible, okay, PI should insist seeing just raw data, not processed data. When students show you the final figure, you should say, show me the raw data. I want to correlate with the raw data. The PI should cross-check the final figures with the raw data before publication. Okay. And then PI must avoid to create an very oppressive lab culture, as Dr. Cato had created. You should be open to anonymity. Data coming out not completely fit your model. And if you ask the student to repeat a few times, it could be a very important discovery. You know, I can tell you a very classical story, and there are so many of them, right? Dr. Tom Cech, Nobel laureate, because of his discovery of safe splicing intron, catalytic RNA. His research, original research, was not doing with splicing RNA metabolism. No, he was working on transcription. But the gene he was working on has an intron in there. So then he made an in vitro transcript, and lo and behold, his research associate showed him the first piece of results. Say, well, the RNA should be this big. But strangely, on the gel, it has two bands, and both are smaller than the top band. And if I consider I'm Dr. Tom Chang, and then my first response would be, you must have made a fucking mistake, right? So what do I do? As Dr. Chang has done, repeat the goddamn experiment. And then the same. Repeat it again. Same. Repeat it again. The same. Fourth time. Then he said, something is fishy out there. Something is potentially very interesting out there. That's where the origin was of his Nobel Prize. So PI must maintain an open ended culture, not a very close culture and oppressive, and then should not serve on the honorary author. Because it's easy to get on a paper and then to put on your CV that you have one additional paper. What if this paper become a problem? You bear the responsibility. You should practice that. And you should not mismanage it, because mismanage your life, because that's your responsibility. At the very, very end, that's your responsibility. Because at the very end, you do not want to have this situation show up in your life or at your office. Okay, just Dr. Dr. Baltimore has experienced that. Secret Service show up at your office. They want the notebook. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so at the very end, let me close my talk by saying that in 2010, there was a meeting in Singapore. They put out a Singapore statement about the research integrity. Every one of you have a copy of that. Okay, it will take you about 5-10 minutes to read it. Just read it about it. Okay, and at the very end, I want to use the 10th commandment from the Bible. Moses said, "You should not do this. You should not do that." Right? So 10th commandment. He said, "Okay, thou should not commit adultery." Many in the society commit adultery. Right? Thou should not steal. Okay, those should not steal credit. Those should not steal other people's data. Thou should not bear false witness against their neighbor. So my conclusion is that you shall not even think about it. Okay? So because that's a very serious problem. So thank you very much. And then I hope you have a very honorable research and great success. Thank you.